Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight on how colleges recruit for soccer. My guest today is Charlie Inverso. He's the head men's soccer coach for Rider University. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So usually my first question to all my guests is where you went to college.
I went to the former Trenton State College,
Okay.
which is now the College of New Jersey,
Yeah.
which is a lot more selective than when I went there.
Sure.
That's where I went to school.
Okay. So now, how does someone go from Trenton State College, or TCNJ as they call it today, into becoming a head coach at Rider University?
The first coaching job that I had was actually at Princeton University as a volunteer assistant back in 1980.
Wow.
A long time ago, and I wanted to come up here, and I stayed here for 6 years, and was really great learning experience.
Yeah.
My last 2 years worked under Bob Bradley, who was, the last World Cup in 2010 was our head coach, was the head coach here at Princeton, obviously.
Okay.
It was a tremendous experience.
Okay. And then after that?
After that, I went on to Mercer County Community College.
Okay.
And spent 24 seasons there.
Wow.
Yeah, 24 seasons at Mercer, and then resigned in 2009. Did 1 year as an assistant at Rutgers, and then I've been at Rider since 2011.
Ever since?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So now, you've been there a few years now, right?
Yeah, this is my fourth season.
Okay. And the team's been good. At least this year, they're actually off to a good start.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's been a long, slow process, but we're on the right track for sure.
Good. So now, tell me, how does the recruiting process start for soccer at the college level? What do you do? What's the process that you do to start to look for soccer players?
Yeah, it varies so much among different institutions and different levels. I would say that for us personally, we start looking at players when they're a junior, and a lot of our recruitment comes from previous contacts that we have, and so we usually contact club coaches. Because we have international players, we get contacted by some services that handle the recruitment of international players. But we, usually the contacts that we make with players usually comes from referrals from some of the better club and high school coaches.
Okay, so is there any type of budget or money that soccer gets at the college level where they can actually go out and find recruits?
Yeah, and we have a budget for traveling. Ours is not as large as some of the big conference schools, but yeah, there's a budget for sure for travel, so you can go to tournaments and observe players.
Okay, and so now, what do you look for in a high school player? What type of qualities does a high school player need to get to a school like Rider University, which is, I guess, a Division I program?
Division I, yeah. It's interesting you say, when you say the high school program, a lot of the recruiting now is, and probably a good majority of recruiting is being done on the club level. But in terms of what we look for in a player, physical attributes are important, size, speed, strength, but not the only essential quality that we look for. We look for guys, without trying to use what my friends call soccer head term. We look for guys that are real soccer players.
Sure.
Obviously skillful people that can keep the ball moving. And depending on the position that the player plays, obviously we look for different qualities in a defender than we do with an attacking player. An attacking player forward is pretty much, can they score goals? Can they get chances? Can they find chances? Can they make chances? Right. With a midfielder, depending on whether they're playing in the center or whether they're playing out on the flank, there's a lot of different types of midfielders. I mean, there's a playmaking midfielder. There's kind of a guy that holds the position in the midfield and wins loose balls for you. And then there's wide guys, and they all have different qualities. And you know, defenders, you know, we look for guys that can stay alert and not lose their mark, and guys that can play the ball out of the back for sure.
Great. So now, do academics come into play when you're recruiting?
Absolutely. For us, because we're not endowed with the highest level of scholarships, we have to kind of be innovative and creative in terms of finding a way to make it all fit. And for us, a big part of it is the academic package that Rider gives.
Okay.
And so for sure. And if we're talking about schools that are Ivy League or sub-Ivy League, obviously, you know, academics is probably the number one criteria, you know, which will determine whether you're going to be able to get in or not.
So what is an average academic grade for a high school kid? What does a Division I school like a Rider University look for?
Well, they have to get through the NCAA Division I Eligibility Center, and there's a sliding scale for that. And it used to be the old sliding scale would start with you needed a 2.0 grade point average in 13 core classes, and so they're not classes like physical ed or anything. It's core classes, history and language arts, math. It used to be a 2.0 GPA and an 800 on the SAT, math and verbal, but the scale has changed now, and so it's, you know, it's on a sliding scale basis. That's just to qualify, you know. That's just to qualify, and then for admission to a school, obviously it depends on the school. I mean, I'm going through that process now with my daughter who's a junior, and obviously it depends on the individual school. There is a small segment of the academic or the athletic part, the athletic facet of it, that could help kind of push the student, you know, over the edge.
Yeah, sure. Now, so academics and athletics is key to get them to college.
Sure.
Now, once they're in college, a lot of parents always ask the question, you know, it's all about the athletics. It's never about the academics. Is there anything that Rider does for their students that are at college that, you know, they gear towards the academics as well as the athletics?
Yeah, that's going to be an easy one for me to answer. Our first year players have to do 4 to 6 hours a week with a individual tutor, which has really helped our student progress. And I'm really proud to say that last semester, 20 of our 24 players made the dean's list, and our GPA was 3.45, which is, was really, really proud. The only problem with that is it's going to be hard to maintain. It's a tough record to keep up, but we require that they go 4 to 6 hours their first year, and if a student has proven through the grade point average that you know, that they're capable, we either take them off the tutoring list or just, you know, lighten their hours. And if they've proven that they're below anything below 275, they have to go additional hours. And
Gotcha.
I kind of feel that it's my job to make sure that they finish with a 3.0 or as close to 3.0 as possible. And if they don't, it's not because I haven't made it, you know, my priority.
So a student that comes to your school, am I assuming, is the graduation rate pretty high then for your team?
Yeah, it is, and you know, the NCAA, you get monitored with that.
Oh, really?
You know, you can't just have it's called an APR, academic progress rate, and so you just that kind of rules out against teams just bringing in kids and not graduating them, and you start to lose scholarships once your APR dips down below a certain level.
Really? Yeah. And that's for every sport, or is
That's
that
for
just
every
soccer?
Yeah, that's for every sport.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the APR keeps kind of a system of checks and balances.
Yeah, interesting. So now you're at the high school level, traveling around. Do you have any process that you take? Is it just the area schools that you're recruiting from, or is it the whole country? How do you know where to go and how to recruit these kids?
I'd say now with college soccer, college sports, but college soccer, there really aren't any boundaries anymore. I mean, there's a lot of international players, particularly in our conference, and so while we like to concentrate most of our recruiting in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. We also have international players, but I would say that the majority of our players, the good majority of them that aren't international players, are from New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah.
So would you say New Jersey is a hotbed?
New Jersey has always been a hotbed for soccer. Always has, always will be. And I get into, we get in a lot of debates and arguments with my friends from around the country as to, which is the best state or the best area, and
Well, you would think that maybe states that are warmer climates, they would have better players only because they get to play all year round?
Yeah, it used to be years ago that there were certain hotbeds, but now you'll find good players coming out of just about every state. But I mean, your real hotbeds would be the Northeast, pockets of the Midwest, like Chicago, St. Louis. Southern California is a real hotbed,
Yeah.
just because, like you said, the climate, and there's so many players down there.
Yeah.
Between LA and San Diego, that area there's, that's.
So where do you start recruiting your players from? A majority of your players, you said, are from New Jersey. Where else are they from? Are they from just other countries? Would you say 10%, 20%?
Yeah, maybe 10%. Yeah, of our team, maybe a little bit more, but usually we get contacted by like the recruiting services as to just to make us aware of those players.
And then how do you get to watch those players? They just send
Sometimes
you film, or you go actually over to Africa or Italy or wherever.
Sometimes we go over and watch them. Other times, I mean, it all starts with the film, which I know you're gonna get into a little bit later as to advice for parents, and one of the things I'll talk about is the importance of a film and what criteria makes a good recruiting film.
Yeah, well, you can get into it. I mean, what does make a good recruiting film?
A good recruiting film has to be a good game, a good quality game on a good field against a good opponent, decent, what we call speed of play, so that the ball is moving around at a decent speed of play, and it's got to be filmed well from a good vantage point.
Yeah.
And you could pretty much say that you might be able to give a player a scholarship based on the quality of the film.
Really?
You usually want to go over and see them live, but I think the mistake that a lot of kids make is they send 8-second snippets of a game, and they're spliced here and there, and a lot of times they come with annoying music, and I would say for a good recruiting film, if you don't have a full game, your introductory email should include just a short bio about yourself, what kind of grades you have, what kind of club or high school team that you play with, because the club and high school team carries a lot of status. And so that automatically will kind of open the door for you, your grades. And you should probably keep the resume in the beginning short, because coaches get inundated with way more than you think.
Yeah.
And you may be thinking, I'm sending this out, and I may be the only email that the coach gets on a day. He may be getting 20 on a day, and
Sure.
It's impossible to look through everyone. And if you're going to send out short snippets, I would say In the beginning, no skill drills, just send game footage. Game footage might get you to the next level, which would be, at least the way that that I do my recruiting is after I see game footage or after I see snippets of game footage, I can say, now could you send me a full game or a half of a game?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, it's a game that's got to be against a good opponent and on a good field.
So is it better to give you a full game, or is it better to give you 2-3 minutes of a game and then 2-3 minutes of another game, 2-3 minutes of another game?
Yeah, no, the full game is best. The full game is best from a good angle, so that the camera shows all the players on the field.
Okay.
Because if all I'm getting is little snippets of the player on the ball, I can't really tell what they do when they don't have the ball.
Gotcha.
And I can't really tell a lot of times how good the other players are. And that's why the quality of the film is important, because now I could see you playing against a weak opponent.
Sure.
And looking fantastic, but it doesn't mean that you're going to look great the next time I see you against a better opponent.
So do you see a lot of films with club teams, with these elite type of club teams,
Yeah.
or academic club teams?
Yeah, there's a big debate with high school and club soccer now that the top club level in the United States Developmental Academy, and the kids that are on those teams aren't allowed to play in high school, and there's a big debate, and there's no way that on this show that I'm gonna state my opinion on that, because
Sure.
I don't want to lose any friends. So, but there's a big there's a big debate about that. The United States Developmental Academy, at their showcases, they videotape all the games, and so it's that part makes it a lot easier if you're sent a tape to see a full game.
Yeah. And do you see a lot of coaches at those tournaments that they bring in?
Too many.
Really?
Yeah, at some of the showcases, they're jam packed.
Do you know of any that you can give some of the viewers out there that might be interested in sending their son to one of these camps?
Well,
Or invitationals, or what?
and I'm glad you brought that out about the camps, because I'll talk about that a little bit more after I answer the question about the showcases. MSSL has a big program, and it's not with the U.S. Academy, but they have a lot of good showcases. They've done some at Rider. They do a lot at Tuckahoe Farms, and most of the time the kids that are on those clubs know about these showcases.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the parents do. The
Right.
parents are really involved with the whole process. But if you don't do anything with regards to showcases, or if you with a club and maybe haven't been getting a lot of attention, my suggestion would be, most schools nowadays have either a week-long camp, a 3-day camp, or a 1-day, what they call ID camp.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think it gives you an idea of how you can kind of narrow down your choices based on the schools that you're interested in going to.
Right. So parents should send their kids to those particular schools if they're interested in going to that school.
If they're interested in going to that
So
school.
what year do they usually start to go to those type of camps? Is it freshman year, sophomore year of high school?
I'm not even sure what the NCAA regulations are, but I believe they can start going when they're freshmen.
Okay.
And it's a good way. We've actually found some players for our program from the ID clinics.
Really?
Yeah. I'll give a little plug to our goalkeeper, Jimmy Quilters from South Brunswick, right up the road, and,
Sure.
and Jimmy came to one of our clinics and did well, and and he's even earned some scholarship money. So that would be, the film, the quality of the film from the showcase, and going to the ID clinics, for me, are the best way that kids can get recognized.
Yeah, and so the parents are out there, and they want to make sure they find the right camps for their kids.
Sure.
Is there, other than just the school camps, is there any camps that are in the area in the state of New Jersey that they could look for as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of camps, and a lot of them advertise having college coaches there.
Okay.
And some of them have college coaches there, and some of them don't have so many.
I got
And
you.
so it's probably best to kind of check
Just
up on
look up.
on the validity of it. And there's a lot of ID camps out there, and also usually with the camp, they'll usually list the names of the coaches that will be coming to the camp. But again, you have to make sure that it's. You have to do your homework with that, because a lot of times the names are listed. I know I'm listed. I probably was listed to go about 60 camps this summer.
And it's tough.
Yeah, it's
Tough to get to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now there's a lot of returning players that are on your team.
Correct.
So is the retention rate to bring the players back year in and year out pretty high for the team, or is it just because not a lot of kids graduated last year?
Yeah, well, you only have 4 years to play. So you have 4 years to play, 4 seasons to play in 5 years. So you may redshirt a year, you may miss a year. I mean, there's a lot of returning players. I hope because they enjoy the program.
Good.
But there is a pretty high transfer rate in college sports nowadays.
Really?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a dilemma.
And what's the process with that if someone wants to transfer from a different school?
Well, usually it's sometimes, there's a little bit of funny business that goes on because there's a lot of third-party recruiting. What we find in, Rider be considered a mid-major program, that there may be cases of coaches at high majors interested in poaching mid-major players.
So they have to wait until the season's over and then get ask their coach to come off the team or something?
You're forbidden to do that by NCAA regulations. I am not allowed to contact a player from another school.
Gotcha.
A player can contact me, and there's some unscrupulous business that goes on with that. But I would say the process in general is that the player has to ask the coach for a release. A release and permission to talk to another school.
And is there a form that they actually fill out?
Yeah.
Oh, there is.
It's a release, and it could be a restricted release that you can only talk to the schools listed. Usually, it's kind of forbidden or poorly looked upon for a kid to transfer to a school in the same conference. Usually, that's kind of there's restrictions on that.
Yeah. Now, does that kid, if he's not interested in staying on the team and does something like that, does that kid now go into another pool if he doesn't find the other school to come back? Now all of a sudden that coach is not as lenient on that kid, would you say?
Right. No, exactly. I mean, it has happened. Yeah. Where
so it's a tightrope for the student then.
Yeah.
You really do have to pick the right school.
Right. And you know what? And sometimes kids will do it without the coaches having any knowledge of it.
Really?
Yeah. So, but we like to think our guys wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's good. So I mean, you've been there for 4 years, and the program's going really well. Do you see yourself really building the program into the future?
Yeah. No, I'm optimistic about our future. We still have a relatively young team. We're starting 7 underclassmen, so we still. I like the group of guys that we have now, and so now we've had a couple of guys that have really been more or less exemplars of how that they should conduct themselves, and. So the culture in our locker room is really good now. The guys kind of know what the boundaries are, and so we want to keep finding guys like that.
Yeah, so keep it going.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we want to keep finding guys that the guys that study, guys that work hard, put the time in, and guys that are out for the team instead of out for themselves.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, We're coming to the end of our show.
Okay.
So usually what I ask my guests is, what type of advice do you want to give the parents that are out there if their kids are interested in playing soccer at the next level, which is at the college level?
The first thing would be to get in a good soccer program with good coaching. I think getting with a good club with good coaches where you're playing against good competition is going to be the best developmental process that you can go through. The next thing is that to find a program that is going to encourage your son or daughter to work on their technical ability, especially if they're young. Soccer is well, it's not completely unique, but it's not an easy sport to play because the skills are difficult.
Sure.
Are difficult. We're doing everything with our feet. And as I told somebody one time, it's like if we're so easy to use your feet, we would eat with we'd put utensils between our toes.
You're right.
But doing things with our feet is more difficult than doing things with our hands. And so it's a sport that requires a lot of skill. And I think one of the biggest things and listen, I don't ever want to say that we are definitely progressing internationally in this country in terms of a soccer nation. One thing that's holding us back to maybe catching up to the next level is that our kids don't do a lot of repetition training for soccer when they're young. Partly because there's too many things for them to do, partly because there's not a lot of programs out there that will help enhance their repetition training. But the kids that I know that started doing a lot of repetition training when they were young on their skill have really done well. I mean, one of them grew up in Princeton, Michael Bradley, one of our top players. He grew up here in Princeton, under the tutelage of his dad. And I saw Michael do repetition training when he was 8 years old, and he's a world-class player now. So.
Good. Well, thank you for coming.
Sure,
I appreciate
thanks,
it.
Andy.
And thank you for watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.